The auction block stood in the center of Yuma, Arizona Territory, on a sweltering afternoon in July of 1878, and Amelia Thompson felt the sun beating down on her exposed shoulders as rough hands pushed her forward onto the wooden platform where cattle had stood just hours before. She stumbled but caught herself, refusing to fall, refusing to give them that satisfaction. The crowd of men below her whistled and jeered, their faces blurred through the tears she fought to hold back. This could not be happening. This could not be real. Women were not property, not livestock to be sold to the highest bidder, and yet here she stood in a dusty Arizona town, about to be auctioned off to pay her late stepfather's gambling debts. "Gentlemen, gentlemen," the auctioneer's voice boomed across the square. "Next we have this fine young woman, healthy as a horse, good for cooking, cleaning, and whatever else a man might need. Starting bid is $500. Amelia's stomach turned. $500. That was what her stepfather owed before he got himself shot in a card game 2 weeks prior. The men he owed had come to collect, and when they found the house empty of valuables, they had decided she would do instead. The local sheriff had turned a blind eye, his pockets lined with their silver. "500, called a gruff voice from the back. "550, another shouted. Amelia scanned the crowd desperately, searching for any sympathetic face, anyone who might help her. But she saw only leering grins and cold calculation. She was 22 years old, unmarried, with no family left in the world who cared. Her mother had died bringing her into this world, and her father had perished from consumption when she was 15. The stepfather who followed had been nothing but trouble, and now his final act of cruelty was leaving her to face this fate alone. 600, the bids kept climbing. Then she saw him. A tall man standing at the edge of the crowd, his dark brown hat pulled low over his eyes, but she could see his jaw was set tight with what looked like anger. He wore dusty trail clothes, a worn leather vest over a blue shirt, and a gun belt slung low on his hips. Unlike the others, he was not smiling. He looked furious. 650. Someone called. The tall man stepped forward, his boots thudding against the hard, packed earth. $1,000, he said, his voice cutting through the noise like a knife. The crowd went silent. The auctioneer's eyes widened. "Did I hear 1,000? You heard right." The man pulled a thick roll of bills from inside his vest. $1,000 in cash, and this ends now. Well then. The auctioneer practically salivated at the sight of the money. Going once, going twice, sold to the cowboy in the blue shirt. Amelia's knees nearly gave out. $1,000. Who was this man? What did he want with her? The auctioneer grabbed her arm and hauled her down from the platform, shoving her toward her buyer. She stumbled forward and strong hands caught her before she fell. "Easy," the cowboy said quietly. His eyes, she could see now, were a striking shade of blue-gray like storm clouds. "I am not going to hurt you. What do you want with me?" Her voice came out shakier than she wanted. "To get you out of here." He released her arms and turned to the auctioneer, counting out the bills with deliberate precision. "Here is your blood money." The auctioneer snatched the cash, counting it quickly. "Pleasure doing business. She is all yours, friend." "She is not mine or anyone else's," the cowboy said coldly. "She is her own person." He took Amelia's elbow gently and guided her through the dispersing crowd. Men called out crude suggestions and laughter, but the cowboy ignored them all, his jaw tight. They walked down the dusty main street toward a hitching post where 2 horses waited, a large buckskin gelding and a smaller gray mare. Amelia pulled her arm free, stopping in the middle of the street. "Wait, just wait. Who are you? Why did you do that?" The cowboy turned to face her, pushing his hat back slightly. He had a strong face, weathered by sun and wind, with deep-set eyes and a mouth that looked like it did not smile often. He was perhaps 28 or 30, she guessed. "Name is Dalton Cooper," he said. "And I did it because what was happening back there was wrong, plain and simple wrong. You spent $1,000. I have it to spend. But why? You do not even know me." Dalton looked at her for a long moment. "My mother was sold like that once, back in Missouri before the war. Different circumstances, but same result. A man bought her, and he was not kind about it. She eventually escaped and made it to Kansas, where she met my father. But she never forgot what it felt like to stand on that platform. She told me about it before she died, made me promise that if I ever saw something like that happening, I would not turn away." He gestured toward the horses. "So I did not turn away." Amelia felt something crack in her chest, the fear and humiliation of the past hour finally overwhelming her. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." Dalton shifted uncomfortably, clearly not used to gratitude or tears. "You are welcome. Now we should get moving before those men decide they want to renegotiate. Do you have anywhere to go?" "Any family?" She shook her head, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. "No one. Nothing. My stepfather lost our house in a card game 3 months ago. I have been staying in a boarding house, but I cannot pay any more." "Then come with me." He walked to the gray mare and began checking the saddle. "I have a ranch about 15 miles north of here, up in the foothills. It is not much, but there is a spare room in the house, and I could use help with the cooking and such. I will pay you fair wages, and you will be safe there." Amelia stared at him. "You are offering me a job." "I am offering you a choice," Dalton corrected. "You can come work for me as my housekeeper with a proper salary and your own space, or I can stake you to a stagecoach ticket to anywhere you want to go. Your choice. Your freedom." The word hung in the air between them. Freedom. It felt foreign after the terror of the past weeks. "I have nowhere else to go," she admitted. "I would like to come to your ranch if the offer is genuine." "It is." He held out his hand to help her mount the gray mare. "This is Misty. She is gentle. Have you ridden before?" "Not much, but some." "That will do." Amelia took his hand, feeling the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip as he helped her into the saddle. She arranged her worn skirts as modestly as possible, grateful that she was at least wearing her most practical dress. Dalton swung up onto his buckskin with easy grace, settling into the saddle like he had been born there. They rode out of Yuma as the sun began its descent toward the western mountains, painting the desert in shades of gold and copper. Amelia took one last look at the town that had witnessed her humiliation, then turned her face forward, toward whatever waited ahead. They rode in silence for a while, the only sounds the steady clip of hooves on stone and the occasional call of a hawk overhead. The desert stretched endlessly around them, dotted with saguaro cacti and scrub brush. The heat was intense, but a slight breeze had picked up, making it bearable. "Tell me about your ranch," Amelia finally said, needing to break the silence. Dalton glanced over at her. "It is called the Copper Creek Ranch, named for the creek that runs through the property. I have about 300 head of cattle, some horses. Been building it up for 5 years now, since I mustered out of the army. You were a soldier, cavalry. Did my time, got my discharge, wanted something different." He guided his horse around a large rock formation. "The ranch is hard work, but it is mine. No one telling me what to do or where to go." Amelia understood that desire for independence all too well. "Do you have any other workers?" "2 ranch hands, Miguel and Tom. They have a cabin about a quarter-mile from the main house. Good men, honest workers. They will respect you, or they will answer to me." There was steel in his voice that made Amelia believe him. She found herself relaxing slightly, the tension in her shoulders easing. "You said your mother escaped. Did she find happiness with your father?" Dalton's expression softened just a fraction. "She did. They had 20 good years together before the fever took them both, one after the other. They are buried on a hill overlooking the Kansas plains, side by side." He paused. "She used to say that freedom was not just about having nowhere to run from, but about having somewhere to run to. I think she found that with my father." "That is beautiful," Amelia said softly. They rode on as the sun sank lower, the temperature dropping as evening approached. The landscape began to change, the flat desert giving way to rolling hills dotted with juniper and piñon trees. In the distance, Amelia could see mountains rising purple against the darkening sky. "We are almost there," Dalton said, pointing ahead. "See that gap between those two hills? The ranch is just beyond." As they crested a rise, Amelia saw it spread out before her in the fading light. A sturdy adobe house with a covered porch, a large barn, several corrals, and in the distance, the dark shapes of cattle grazing. A line of cottonwood trees marked what must be the creek, their leaves rustling in the evening breeze. "It is lovely," she said, and meant it. Dalton looked pleased, though he tried to hide it. "It will do. Come on, let us get you settled before full dark." They rode down into the valley, and as they approached the house, two men emerged from the barn. One was clearly Mexican, stocky and strong with graying hair, while the other was younger, lanky and red-headed. "Boss," the Mexican man called. "We were starting to worry. You said you would be back by afternoon." "Got delayed in Yuma," Dalton said, dismounting. He turned to help Amelia down, his hands firm on her waist as he lifted her from the saddle. "Miguel, Tom, this is Miss Amelia Thompson. She will be our new housekeeper." "Miss Thompson, this is Miguel Ortiz and Tom Sanders." Both men tipped their hats, but Amelia could see the questions in their eyes. She was wearing a dress more suitable for town than ranch work, and she probably looked as exhausted and overwhelmed as she felt. "Pleased to meet you, madam," Miguel said politely. "Likewise," Tom added. "We can talk more tomorrow," Dalton said. "Miguel, can you take care of the horses? Tom, there should be some firewood that needs bringing in." "Sure thing, boss." Both men moved to their tasks, though Miguel gave Dalton a significant look that suggested they would be having a conversation later. Dalton led Amelia up onto the porch and opened the front door. "It is not fancy, but it is clean." The interior of the house was indeed simple, but well-maintained. The main room served as both sitting area and dining space, with a large stone fireplace dominating one wall. A heavy wooden table with 6 chairs sat near the kitchen area, which had a cast iron stove and open shelving stocked with dishes and dry goods. Everything was neat but dusty, clearly lacking a woman's touch. "Your room is through here," Dalton said, leading her to a door on the right side of the house. He opened it to reveal a small but comfortable bedroom with a real bed, a dresser, a washstand, and even a small mirror. A window looked out toward the creek and the mountains beyond. "It was my parents' room when they visited before they passed," Dalton explained. "I hope it will suit you." Amelia turned to him, fresh tears threatening. "It is perfect. More than I could have hoped for. Thank you, Mr. Cooper." "Just Dalton is fine. We do not stand much on ceremony out here." He shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable again. "I will let you rest. There is water in the pitcher, and I will bring you something to eat shortly. Tomorrow we can discuss your duties and wages properly." "Dalton," she said before he could leave, "why did you really do it? The truth." He paused in the doorway, his back to her. For a long moment he did not speak. Then he turned, and the expression on his face was raw with an old pain. "Because I could not save my mother, but I could save you. That has to count for something in this world." Before Amelia could respond, he was gone, pulling the door closed behind him. She sat down on the bed, the events of the day finally catching up with her. She had been auctioned like livestock. A stranger had bought her freedom. And now she was in a house in the Arizona foothills, 15 miles from the nearest town, with a man she did not know, but she was safe. She was free. And for the first time in months, she had hope. She removed her shoes and lay back on the bed, staring at the wooden ceiling beams. The bed was comfortable, more comfortable than the thin mattress at the boarding house. Through the window, she could hear the evening sounds of the ranch settling down for the night, the lowing of cattle, the occasional whinny of a horse, the murmur of men's voices. A knock came at the door. "Miss Thompson, I have some food for you. Come in." Dalton entered carrying a tray with a plate of bread, cheese, some cold meat, and an apple. There was also a cup of water. "Not much, but it will hold you until breakfast. I will make a proper meal tomorrow. You cook?" She sat up, taking the tray. "When I have to. Though I will confess it is usually pretty basic. Beans, bacon, coffee. Hence why I could use a housekeeper." He gave her a slight smile, the first she had seen from him, and it transformed his face from stern to almost handsome. Amelia found herself smiling back. "I am actually a good cook. My mother taught me before she died, and I kept up with it over the years. I can make more than beans and bacon. Then we will both benefit from this arrangement." He headed for the door again, then paused. "Miss Thompson, I want you to know that you are safe here. I meant what I said about your freedom. If you ever want to leave, just say the word and I will take you wherever you want to go. No questions asked. Thank you, Dalton. That means more than you know." After he left, Amelia ate slowly, savoring each bite. The bread was a bit stale, but the cheese was good, and the apple was crisp and sweet. When she finished, she washed her face and hands in the basin, changed out of her dress into the thin nightgown she had been wearing under it, and climbed into bed. She expected to lie awake, her mind churning with anxiety and fear. Instead, she fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted by terror and relief in equal measure. She woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee brewing. For a moment, she was disoriented, not recognizing where she was. Then memory returned and she sat up quickly, looking around the room. Her dress from yesterday hung on a peg by the door. Someone, presumably Dalton, had left a basin of fresh water on the washstand. Amelia rose and performed her morning ablutions, wishing she had more than one dress to her name. The one she wore yesterday was her best, or rather, her least worn. She put it back on, doing her best to smooth out the wrinkles, and twisted her long brown hair into a simple bun at the nape of her neck. When she emerged from the bedroom, she found Dalton standing at the stove, frying bacon. He had changed into a clean shirt, dark green this time, and his hair was still damp as though he had washed at the pump outside. "Good morning," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "Coffee is on the table. Cups are on the shelf. Good morning." Amelia poured herself a cup and took a grateful sip. The coffee was strong and hot, exactly what she needed. "What time is it?" "About 7. Miguel and Tom ate at sunrise and are already out checking the herd." He plated the bacon and brought it to the table along with a pan of scrambled eggs and more of the bread from last night, this time toasted over the fire. "Sit. Eat. Then we can talk about how this is going to work." They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes. The eggs were a bit overcooked and the bacon a touch burned, but Amelia did not complain. She was too hungry, and besides, she would be doing the cooking from now on. "So," Dalton said, pushing his empty plate away and refilling his coffee cup, "here is what I am thinking. You keep the house, do the cooking and cleaning, maybe help with the garden if you are inclined. In return, room and board plus $30 a month in wages. Amelia nearly choked on her coffee. $30, that is more than generous. It is fair. You are providing a service, you should be paid properly for it. He looked at her steadily. I also want to make it clear that your room is your own. I will not enter without permission, and you can lock the door if it makes you feel safer. Your work is housekeeping, nothing more. If I have ever given you reason to think otherwise, I apologize. You have been nothing but respectful, Amelia assured him. I appreciate you being so clear about the expectations. Good. Now there is the matter of your situation. Those men in Yuma, the ones your stepfather owed, do you think they will come looking for you? Amelia considered this. I do not think so. You paid the debt in full and then some. They got their money. I cannot imagine they would care what happened to me after that. Probably not, but I want you to be cautious nonetheless. When you go into town, one of us will go with you. Not because I do not trust you, he added quickly, seeing her expression, but because I do not trust them. That seems reasonable. There is one more thing. Dalton looked uncomfortable. The town, Yuma, people will talk. They will make assumptions about you being out here with me and the hands. I cannot control what people say, but I want you to know that I will set anyone straight who speaks ill of you in my hearing. Amelia felt warmth spread through her chest. You are a good man, Dalton Cooper. He looked away, clearly embarrassed. I just try to do right. My parents taught me that much. He stood, collecting the dishes. I will show you where everything is in the kitchen, and then I have work to do. If you need anything, ring the bell on the porch and someone will come. He was true to his word, spending the next hour showing her the layout of the house, where supplies were kept, how the stove worked, where the root cellar was. The house was larger than it looked from outside, with Dalton's bedroom on the opposite side from hers, a small office and a storage room. I usually take my midday meal around noon, supper around 6, he explained. But I am flexible. Miguel and Tom eat in their cabin mostly, but sometimes they join me for supper. Just cook enough for 4 to be safe. I can do that. I am sure you can. He grabbed his hat from a peg by the door. I will be out at the north pasture if you need me. After he left, Amelia stood in the middle of the main room looking around. This was her home now, at least for the time being. She could make it nice. She could make it feel cared for. She started with the dishes, heating water on the stove and washing everything thoroughly. Then she swept the floors, dusted the furniture, and beat the rugs outside. She found linens in a chest and changed the bedding in both bedrooms, hanging the old sheets on the line to air out. In the root cellar, she discovered potatoes, onions, carrots, and some dried beans, along with a few jars of preserved tomatoes. By mid-morning, she was hot and dusty but satisfied with her progress. She went out to the pump and filled a bucket, splashing cool water on her face and neck. The day was already growing warm, but it was a dry heat, not like the oppressive humidity she remembered from back east. She was standing there, water dripping from her hair, when she heard hoofbeats approaching. Her heart jumped into her throat until she recognized Dalton's buckskin. He dismounted near the barn, then walked toward her, leading the horse. "Everything all right?" he called. "Yes, fine. I was just cooling off." He nodded, tying his horse to the rail. "It gets hot out here. Make sure you drink plenty of water." He paused, looking at the house. "Did you hang those sheets out?" "I did. I hope that is all right. They needed washing." "More than all right. I cannot remember the last time they were washed." He pulled off his hat and ran a hand through his sweat-dampened hair. "I came back to check on you, make sure you had everything you needed." "I am fine, truly. I found ingredients for a proper stew for supper." "That sounds better than anything I have made in months." He hesitated, then added, "You do not have to work yourself to exhaustion, you know." This is not about getting your money's worth out of you. I know, but I want to. I want to feel useful to earn my keep." Dalton studied her for a moment, his gray-blue eyes thoughtful. "You are more than earning it. Thank you, Amelia." It was the first time he had used her given name, and she liked the way it sounded in his deep voice. "You are welcome, Dalton." He mounted up again and rode back toward the pastures, and Amelia went inside to start on the midday meal. She made sandwiches with the leftover bread and meat, and when noon came, she rang the porch bell as instructed. Dalton appeared within 10 minutes, along with Miguel and Tom. "Miss Thompson," Miguel said, removing his hat as he stepped onto the porch. "That smells wonderful." "Just sandwiches," she said, bringing out a platter. "But there will be stew tonight." The men ate gratefully, complimenting her on the simple fare. Tom, who could not have been more than 25, seemed particularly shy around her, barely meeting her eyes. Miguel was more talkative, telling her about the ranch and the work they were doing. "We are moving the herd to the north pasture," he explained. "Better grass there this time of year. Should take us a few more days to get them all moved." "How many cattle do you have?" Amelia asked. "About 300 head," Dalton answered. "We will drive some to market in Tucson come fall. It is good money if we can get them there healthy." After the meal, the men returned to work, and Amelia spent the afternoon preparing the stew. She peeled potatoes and carrots, chopped onions, cut the beef into cubes, and set everything to simmering in a large pot with the preserved tomatoes and some herbs she found growing in a neglected garden patch behind the house. As the stew cooked, filling the house with savory smells, she went out to investigate the garden more thoroughly. It was overgrown with weeds but had clearly been productive once. Tomato plants sprawled untended, some bearing fruit. There were also pepper plants, some scraggly herbs, and what looked like it might have been a squash patch before the weeds took over. She spent an hour pulling weeds and tidying up, already planning what she might plant if she stayed through the fall. When she finally went back inside, the stew was perfect, thick and rich and tender. Supper that night was a revelation. All four of them sat around the big table, eating bowl after bowl of stew with fresh bread Amelia had somehow found time to bake. The men were effusive in their praise, and even Dalton, who seemed naturally reserved, told her it was the best meal he had eaten since leaving his parents' home. "My mother used to make stew like this," he said quietly. "I had forgotten how good real cooking could be." Amelia felt a flush of pleasure at the compliment. "I am glad you enjoyed it. I will try to vary the meals so you do not get bored." "Bored of this?" Tom said, sopping up the last of his stew with bread. "Not possible, madam." After supper, Miguel and Tom returned to their cabin and Dalton helped Amelia clear the table. She tried to shoo him away, but he insisted, carrying dishes to the wash basin and even helping to dry. "You do not have to do this," she said. "I can manage, I know, but I want to help." He dried a plate carefully. "I am not some fancy rancher who thinks manual labor is beneath him. I do what needs doing." They worked in comfortable silence for a while, the domesticity of the moment not lost on Amelia. It felt strange and right all at once, this easy partnership with a man she had known for barely 24 hours. "Can I ask you something?" she said as they finished up. "Of course." "What did Miguel and Tom think when you brought me home? They must have wondered." Dalton smiled slightly. "Miguel pulled me aside last night and asked if I had lost my mind. I explained the situation. Once he understood, he said I did the right thing. Tom just seemed grateful there would be decent food for a change." Amelia laughed. "Well, I am happy to provide that at least." "You are providing more than that. You are making this place feel like a home." Dalton hung up the dish towel. "I should let you rest. Tomorrow is Sunday. We do not work the ranch on Sundays except for essential chores. You should take the day to settle in, maybe explore the property a bit if you like." "That sounds nice. Thank you." He bid her good night and retreated to his room, and Amelia did the same. As she lay in bed, listening to the night sounds of the desert, she thought about how much her life had changed in just one day. Yesterday morning, she had woken up in a dingy boarding house, terrified of what was to come. Tonight, she was in a comfortable bed in a home where she was valued and safe. And it was all because of Dalton Cooper, a cowboy who had seen something wrong and decided to make it right. The next few weeks fell into a comfortable rhythm. Amelia rose early each morning to make breakfast for the men. She spent her days cleaning, cooking, tending the garden she had reclaimed from the weeds, and generally making the ranch house into a proper home. She washed and mended the men's clothes, stocked the pantry with preserves and pickles, and even made curtains for the windows from fabric Dalton bought for her on a trip to town. Dalton was gone most days, working the ranch with Miguel and Tom. He would come in for meals, always polite, always grateful, but keeping a respectful distance. In the evenings, he often sat on the porch, reading or doing paperwork, while Amelia sewed or wrote letters to a distant cousin back east, the only family she had left. Sometimes they talked, sharing stories about their pasts. She learned that Dalton had served in the cavalry for 6 years, seeing action against various Indian tribes before growing disillusioned with the Army's methods. He had saved every penny of his pay, and when he mustered out, he used it to buy this land and start his ranch. "I wanted something that was mine," he told her one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "Something I built with my own hands that no one could take away from me." "You have done well," Amelia said, looking out at the ranch. In the fading light, it looked peaceful and prosperous. "You should be proud." "I am. But it is better now with you here. It feels complete somehow." Amelia felt her heart flutter at his words, but she did not know what to say in response. There was something growing between them, something neither of them had named or acknowledged. She found herself looking forward to mealtimes when they could talk, to the evenings on the porch, to the rare occasions when their hands would brush as he helped her carry something, or she handed him a cup of coffee. She was falling for him, she realized. This quiet, honorable man who had saved her from a fate worse than death and asked for nothing in return. But she did not know how he felt, and she was afraid to assume. He had been clear from the beginning that she was his employee, nothing more, and she did not want to presume on his kindness. One Sunday afternoon in August, about 6 weeks after her arrival, Dalton asked if she would like to ride out to see more of the ranch. "There is a place I want to show you," he said, "if you are feeling up to a longer ride." "I would like that." Her riding had improved considerably with regular practice. Dalton had been teaching her, patiently correcting her seat and her handling of the reins. They saddled up and rode east, following the creek up into the foothills. The landscape was beautiful, all red rocks and green cottonwoods, with mountains rising in the distance. After about an hour, they came to a small canyon where the creek widened into a pool, fed by a small waterfall tumbling over moss-covered rocks. "Oh," Amelia breathed. "This is beautiful." "I come here sometimes when I need to think," Dalton said, dismounting. He helped her down, his hands lingering on her waist perhaps a moment longer than necessary. "It is peaceful." They sat by the pool, listening to the water. It was cooler here, shaded by tall cottonwoods and canyon walls. A breeze rustled the leaves overhead. "Amelia," Dalton said after a long silence, "I need to tell you something." Her heart began to pound. "What is it?" He picked up a small stone and tossed it into the pool, watching the ripples spread. "When I brought you here, I told myself it was just to help someone in need, to honor my mother's memory, and that was true, but it was not the whole truth." "What do you mean?" He turned to look at her, his gray-blue eyes intense. "From the moment I saw you on that platform, something in me knew. I cannot explain it. You were terrified and brave all at once, refusing to let them break you, and I thought, there is a woman worth knowing, worth protecting." Amelia's breath caught in her throat. "Dalton, I am not saying this to make you uncomfortable," he continued quickly. "I know our arrangement. I know you are my employee, and I have no right to presume anything beyond that. But these past weeks, having you here, talking with you, watching you bring life to this place, I have come to care for you, deeply. And I needed you to know that, even if nothing comes of it." For a moment, Amelia could not speak. Then she reached out and took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "You are not presuming," she said softly. "I feel the same way, I have for a while now." Dalton's face transformed, hope lighting his features. "Truly, truly. You saved me, Dalton. Not just from that auction, but from despair. You gave me a home, a purpose, and something I never thought I would have again, hope for the future. And somewhere along the way I fell in love with you." He lifted her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. "I do not deserve you." "You deserve everything good in this world," she said fiercely. "You are the best man I have ever known." Dalton cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle despite the calluses on his palms. "May I kiss you, please?" He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, but she did not. When his lips met hers, it was gentle at first, almost tentative. Then she responded, her hands coming up to rest on his chest, and the kiss deepened, becoming something that spoke of longing and promise. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. Dalton rested his forehead against hers. "I love you, Amelia Thompson. I want you to know that. This is not just about attraction or loneliness. I love you." "I love you too, Dalton Cooper." She smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. "What do we do now?" "Well," he said, a rare grin crossing his face. "I think we should probably court properly, even though we are living under the same roof. I want to do this right. I want to marry you, Amelia, if you will have me, but I want you to be sure to have time to know your own heart." "I already know my heart," she said. "But I appreciate that you want to do things properly. So yes, let us court. Let us take our time and do this right." They stayed by the pool for another hour, talking and stealing kisses, making plans for a future that suddenly seemed bright and full of possibility. When they finally rode back to the ranch as the sun was setting, Amelia felt like she was floating. Miguel and Tom noticed the change immediately. The next morning, when Amelia brought breakfast out to the porch where the men were gathered, Miguel gave Dalton a knowing look. "So," he said casually, "how was your ride yesterday, boss?" Dalton tried to hide his smile and failed. "It was very nice, thank you." "Uh-huh." Miguel winked at Amelia. "Must have been some view." Amelia blushed but could not help smiling. Tom looked between them, finally catching on. Oh, that is great. Congratulations, boss." "Miss Thompson." "Nothing to congratulate yet," Dalton said, but his eyes were warm as they met Amelia's. "We are just seeing how things go." "Right," Miguel said, not fooled for a second. "Just seeing how things go." Over the next weeks, Dalton courted Amelia with the same quiet determination he brought to everything. He brought her flowers from the desert, bright blooms she could press and keep. He carved her a small wooden box for her sewing supplies. On Sundays, they would ride out to different parts of the ranch, exploring together and talking for hours. He also took her to town for the first time since the auction. Amelia was nervous about returning to Yuma, but Dalton held her hand as they walked down the main street, and his presence gave her courage. People stared, and she heard whispers, but Dalton glared down anyone who dared say anything in their hearing. They stopped at the general store, where Dalton bought her fabric for new dresses and other supplies she needed. The storekeeper, an older woman named Mrs. Patterson, had known Dalton for years. "This is Miss Thompson," Dalton said, his hand resting protectively on Amelia's back. "She is my housekeeper and my intended if she will have me." Mrs. Patterson's eyebrows rose, but then she smiled warmly. "Well, it is about time you found yourself a good woman, Dalton Cooper. Welcome, Miss Thompson. Any friend of Dalton's is welcome here." The declaration helped. Over the next few visits to town, word spread that Amelia was not some fallen woman but Dalton's intended bride, and the whispers changed from scandalous to approving. A few people remained judgmental, but Dalton's reputation as an honest, hard-working rancher went a long way toward silencing the worst of the gossip. One evening in late September, as they sat on the porch watching the stars come out, Dalton said, "I have been thinking." "About what?" Amelia was mending one of his shirts, her needle flashing in the lamplight. "About us. About our future." He took a deep breath. "Amelia, I know we have only been courting for about 6 weeks, but I have known since the day I saw you that you were meant to be mine, as I was meant to be yours. I do not need more time to know I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Amelia set down her mending, her heart racing. "What are you saying?" Dalton slid off his chair and knelt before her, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple gold band with a small but beautiful turquoise stone. "I am saying, will you marry me, Amelia? Will you be my wife, not just in name but in truth? Will you build a life with me here on this ranch, raise children with me, grow old beside me?" Tears streamed down Amelia's face as she nodded. "Yes. Yes, Dalton, I will marry you. I love you so much." He slid the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply. When they broke apart, both were laughing and crying at once. "I cannot believe this is real," Amelia said, looking at the ring on her finger. The turquoise caught the lamplight, glowing softly. "3 months ago, I was standing on an auction block, and now I am engaged to the most wonderful man in the world. 3 months ago, I was a lonely rancher with no one to come home to," Dalton countered. "And now I have you. We saved each other, Amelia." They decided to marry quickly, not seeing any reason to wait. Miguel offered to ride to Tucson to fetch a priest. And 2 weeks later, on a crisp October morning, Amelia and Dalton were married in the ranch house, with Miguel and Tom as witnesses and Mrs. Patterson from the general store standing up for Amelia. Amelia wore a new dress she had sewn herself, a simple but elegant creation in deep blue that brought out her eyes. Dalton wore his best suit, looking handsome and nervous as he waited for her to emerge from her room. The ceremony was brief but heartfelt. The priest spoke of love and commitment, of the sacred bond between husband and wife. When he asked Dalton if he would take Amelia as his wife, Dalton's voice was strong and clear. "I will, for all my days." And when Amelia said the same, meaning every word, she saw tears in Dalton's eyes. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the priest said. "You may kiss your bride." Dalton did, tenderly but thoroughly, and their small gathering of friends cheered. That night, as Amelia moved her belongings from her room to Dalton's, she marveled at how much her life had changed. She was no longer Amelia Thompson, orphaned and alone. She was Amelia Cooper, wife to a good man, mistress of a beautiful ranch, and happier than she had ever imagined possible. Dalton carried her over the threshold of their bedroom, both of them laughing. "Welcome home, Mrs. Cooper," he said, setting her gently on her feet. "I have been home since the day you brought me here," she said, reaching up to cup his face. "But this makes it official." Their wedding night was tender and passionate, a celebration of the love they had found in the most unlikely of circumstances. Afterward, lying in Dalton's arms, Amelia thought about the journey that had brought her here, from the horror of the auction block to this moment of perfect contentment. "What are you thinking about?" Dalton asked, running his fingers through her loose hair. "About how grateful I am," she said. "About how you changed my life." "We changed each other's lives," he corrected. "I was just existing before you came along. Now I am living." The first year of their marriage was filled with hard work and happiness. Amelia threw herself into making the ranch house a true home, while also learning more about the ranch itself. She helped with branding in the spring, learned to ride well enough to check fences, and became an integral part of the operation. Dalton was a loving and attentive husband, always making sure she knew how much he valued her. He also listened to her ideas about the ranch, implementing several of her suggestions for improving efficiency and profitability. In the spring of 1879, Amelia discovered she was expecting their first child. Dalton was overjoyed, immediately becoming protective and fussing over her constantly. "I am pregnant, not made of glass," she laughed as he insisted on carrying a basket of laundry for her. "I know, but I want to take care of you, both of you." Their son was born in December of 1879, a healthy baby with his father's dark hair and his mother's brown eyes. They named him Daniel after Dalton's father, and he became the center of their world. Watching Dalton with their son, so gentle and loving despite his rough exterior, Amelia fell even more deeply in love with her husband. He was an excellent father, patient and playful, and he often talked to Daniel about the ranch and what he would inherit someday. "Assuming he wants it," Dalton always added. "If he wants to be a doctor or a teacher or anything else, that will be fine too." When Daniel was 2, Amelia became pregnant again, and in 1882 they welcomed a daughter they named Alice, after Dalton's mother. She had her mother's delicate features and her father's striking eyes, and she wrapped Dalton around her tiny finger from the moment she was born. The ranch continued to prosper. With Amelia's help in managing the household accounts and planning for the future, they were able to expand their herd and purchase additional land. Miguel and Tom both married, bringing their wives to the ranch, and a small community began to grow. Over the years, Amelia and Dalton added 2 more children to their family, another son named Matthew in 1884 and a second daughter named Elena in 1887. Their home was always filled with laughter and love, and the ranch became known throughout the territory as a place of hospitality and fairness. Amelia never forgot where she had come from, and she made it her mission to help other women in difficult circumstances. She and Dalton quietly paid for several young women to escape bad situations, providing them with money for transportation and letters of introduction to people who could help them start fresh lives. "You are doing what that man did for my mother," Dalton told her when she worried they were giving away too much. "Paying it forward, making the world a little better. I am proud of you." Years passed, bringing both joy and sorrow. Miguel died peacefully in his sleep in 1895, and they buried him on a hill overlooking the ranch he had helped build. Tom eventually moved to Tucson with his wife, opening a mercantile, but he visited often and remained a close friend. As the new century approached, Dalton and Amelia's children grew into fine young adults. Daniel decided he did want to run the ranch, showing the same dedication and integrity his father had always displayed. Alice became a teacher, opening a small school on the ranch for the children of the workers. Matthew went east to study medicine, returning to set up a practice in Yuma. And Elena, their youngest, proved to have a gift for training horses, developing a breeding program that brought additional income to the ranch. On a warm evening in June of 1900, Dalton and Amelia sat on the porch of the ranch house, now expanded and improved over the years, but still the same home where they had begun their life together. They were in their early 50s, their hair graying but their love as strong as ever. "Can you believe it has been 22 years?" Amelia said, leaning against Dalton's shoulder. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday, and sometimes it feels like we have always been together." He kissed the top of her head. "Do you ever regret it, coming here with me that day?" "Never. Not for a single moment." She looked out at the ranch, at the buildings and corrals and the cattle grazing in the distance. Their grandchildren, Daniel's 3 children, were playing in the yard, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. "You gave me everything, Dalton. A home, a family, a life worth living." "You gave me the same," he said softly. "I was lost before you came along. You gave me purpose and joy. You made me whole." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and gold. Daniel came out of the barn and waved to them, and his oldest son ran to him, demanding to be carried. The scene was one of domestic contentment, of a legacy being passed down through generations. "You remember what I said to you that first day?" Dalton asked. "About freedom being not just having nowhere to run from, but having somewhere to run to. I remember everything about that day. I think my mother was right. Freedom is not just escape. It is finding the place and the people where you belong, finding home." He took her hand, running his thumb over the turquoise ring she still wore after all these years. "I found my home in you, Amelia, and I am grateful for it every single day." Amelia turned to kiss him, a kiss full of love and gratitude and the deep contentment that comes from a life well lived. "And I found mine in you." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, they remained on the porch, hand in hand, surrounded by the evidence of the beautiful life they had built together. From the darkest moment of Amelia's life had come the greatest blessing, and from Dalton's act of courage and compassion had grown a love story that would echo through generations. Their grandchildren would grow up hearing the tale of how their grandmother was saved from the auction block by their grandfather, the cowboy with a heart of gold. And they would pass the story down to their own children, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is always hope, always the possibility of redemption, and always the transformative power of love. The ranch continued to thrive under Daniel's management, and when Dalton and Amelia eventually passed, within months of each other in the winter of 1915, they were laid to rest on a hill overlooking the ranch, their graves side by side just as they had lived their lives. Their love story became legend in Yuma, a testament to the idea that true love can begin in the most unexpected ways, and that a single act of courage can change the course of 2 lives forever. The Copper Creek Ranch remained in the family for generations, each new owner remembering the legacy of Dalton and Amelia Cooper, who had proven that freedom and love were the most precious gifts of all. But perhaps the truest measure of their love was simpler than all that. It was in the way they had looked at each other every day of their marriage, with the same wonder and gratitude they had felt on that first day when a cowboy bought a woman's freedom and offered his heart as well. It was in the home they had built together, the children they had raised, the lives they had touched, and the example they had set. They had taken a moment of horror and transformed it into a lifetime of happiness. They had chosen each other, day after day, year after year, through good times and bad. And in doing so, they had created something beautiful and enduring, a love that would outlast them both and inspire all who heard their story. In the end, that was their legacy. Not just a prosperous ranch or a large family, but proof that love, real love, can heal even the deepest wounds, and that sometimes the most profound journeys begin with a single step toward doing what is right, no matter the cost.